What is up, everybody? Did UConn play their way and win their way off of the 8 line with their win over Marquette? Let's find out. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to take a second to thank everyone who came up to me and said hello yesterday or even today before I left, told me they supported the show, thanked me. Just it's humbling and super overwhelming to even understand that I'm doing this and you know, just it's I posted some stuff on X while I was on the plane, and it's just I still can't kind of put that stuff into words. One day maybe I will, but you know, especially if you love basketball like I do, especially UConn basketball, you're cool with me. Special shout out to my everydayers. You keep me going daily. We're the only daily podcast covering both the men's and women's programs. We're super proud of that. The absolute hoops capital of the world. And we're also giving back to donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project. In fact, check out tomorrow morning for a special Locked On UConn ticket giveaway content that we put together, where I went to the New Britain Boys Club yesterday afternoon and gave away 2 tickets in a really fun segment with one of the kids there. Shout out James Jones, who runs the facility there and is the director, and also shout out Donnie Mileta, who's the CEO of the Boys Club Alliance for the entire state of Connecticut. So appreciate you kind of setting me up that way. We gave away 2 tickets to Seton Hall, the Seton Hall game in Gamble. A lot of these kids typically don't get to go to Gamble, so it was fun to give away a couple of seats that way. I'm excited for everyone to see what we did, and I'll put that out tomorrow. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada, an absolute tank of a car. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode, and I tend to agree with the Armada Team of the Week. So, well, let's go, baby. UConn did it again. 3rd straight win, a gritty, relentless, and at times downright violent defensive showcase led to a season sweep of Marquette, 72-66, and when it mattered most, the Huskies had closers. Alex Karaban, cool, calm, and clutch. Captain America, as they like to call him. Put the game on ice with 21 points, knocking down every free throw and 3-ball when the moment called for it. Samson Johnson, do not listen to this idiot right here who wanted him out of the starting lineup. I did tell a lot of people before the game, you can ask anybody that I talked to when I made the rounds, what did you want to see? I said, at minimum, I wanted Samson to give them better minutes so that if Terrace has to come in, he has a chance to be rested. And who knows? Samson had a good game against Marquette. Let's see if he can duplicate that. What he did was have a career game, a force in the paint, an absolute maniac all over the court, recording his first career double-double with a career-high 11 rebounds and 10 points. Cleaned up the glass, was a rim runner. He played like his life depended on it. And how about Jaylin Stewart? My God. If you needed a momentum-shifting play, how about we talk about that number 2 on the SportsCenter top 10 list, the put-back one-handed dunk that he delivered that sent Gamble into a frenzy. I wouldn't call it a morgue at that point, but it started to get pretty quiet as Marquette was starting to kind of flip the script a little bit. They were up 3, and then in comes Stewie for the dunk. And we're going to talk about one of the questions I asked Dan later in the show about this game that was a war, but because I thought it was JStew who essentially took the team and said, look, this, whatever you want to say about the officiating, because I wasn't too high on them yesterday either. But one thing I will say about the officiating yesterday that was true, and it was echoed by Dan in the press conference, it was fair. And the reason why it was fair is because nobody got calls. Can't sit here and say Marquette shot more free throws than us. Can't sit here and say that Marquette got a better whistle. They just let them play. And they out-toughed Marquette. They outclassed them, outlasted them, and out-defended them. Alex, JStew, I thought everybody set the tone defensively, but particularly Jaylin Stewart in that 10-0 run stretch made life miserable for the Golden Eagles. Hassan Diarra, the quiet general, ran the show, 5 assists, but I also thought his steadiness being hounded by a guy like Stevie Mitchell was just like what you need in these type of games. Every possession was a battle. Every loose ball was you had a Husky diving on the floor, especially in the second half. Didn't start off that way. They let up 4 layups in the first half on the only 4 offensive rebounds that Marquette had. So it was not looking good then. Marquette came in looking for revenge. The Huskies slammed the door in the second half, but they didn't slam it shut, I would say. They kept it open just a little bit, just in time for Alex to save the day. And we're also going to talk about, Dan described the play that got Alex the 3-point shot to perfection, and he praised Terrace Reed Jr. What an absolute great teammate Terrace Reed is, because think about it. This kid has been dominating teams, 24 points, 18 rebounds, and 6 blocks against Providence. In this game, he was a supporting actor, and it was his pass and his kick out that led to Alex's 3, because it was his headiness, his incredible basketball IQ in this specific play to get the ball, realize that he didn't have a clear path to the basket, kick it out to Alex, who was pretty open for a 3. And of course, Alex does what he does in these situations in March. He knocks down a 3. All right, guys, let's, I'm going to put the link in the chat if you guys want to come in, and talk about this game. I was there. It felt great. If you saw me, I think David in the chat mentioned he did see me and I was locked in. One of the things I will say is, and I'm not saying anything negative about anybody, because I've been so happy and blessed to be able to do this stuff, that I just don't know how anyone can sit on their hands during a game. Even if I'm at a game that I don't have a rooting interest in, I'm pumped up and excited. And it's because I love basketball. So links in the chat. Anybody can come in. Would love to talk to you guys. Yeah. But other than that, let's see if anyone jumps on. Quality win against a top-tier opponent, beating Marquette, who is a projected number 4 seed, will add a significant boost to UConn's resume. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if anyone wants to jump on. I see Peter. Peter, hang on for me for 1 second. I'm just going to do a quick ad. We have 1 ad on the show. It's about Nissan, and then I'm going to get to Peter and then anyone else that wants to jump on the show. And we're going to talk about, did we play ourselves into a 7 seed with that win that we just had last night? Get Peter's thoughts coming up after the break. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our locked-on college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from the top-seeded stars to be unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada clear-cut Team of the Week is the Houston Cougars. Yes, the Houston Cougars. I happen to totally agree with this pick, because Houston is a dynamic team. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in conference games, winning the regular season title by multiple games both years. There is no team in college basketball that is more capable of embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the 2nd straight season. It's clear that our Team of the Week, Houston, is already ready to conquer the road with confidence, just like you can with the all-new Nissan Armada or any Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder for a go to find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right. Let's get Peter in here. Peter, what's up, man?
Hey, Mark, how are you? Glad to see you got home all right, and they won a gamble for you.
Yeah, someone said it was Sam Calhoun, who I had said Sam is the best. So he's sitting in front of me this time, and when we were in Hartford together, we're kind of pushing each other, trying not to go too crazy in media row. And when the game was over, he looked right at me and said, "If they didn't win today, I think they would have asked you to stay home next time." So,
That's a good point.
so because it would have been 0-2 with me in the building and in stores. So I'm glad that I'm 2-1 in games this year. So leaving the regular season, I had a 2-game win streak. So yes, it was good to see them win.
So my takeaways was, first of all, I was thrilled that Samson and Alex did this at Gamble on their last game, and how poetic we've been just urging, because we love the guy, Karaban, to have that moment, and he has it right when we need it. I mean, he had a great game overall. I thought his defense was spectacular throughout the game. The blocks he had in the first half, the tough rebounds. I mean, they all were, but he played his defense. I just think his defense has really improved. He's put a lot into it. And I think, we should all recognize that, because he's come a long way defensively. And I'm glad he got that clutch shot. But we talked about it when Dan was on after Georgetown about the Terrace Reed effect.
Yeah.
And it's clear, like on that last play, if Samson, and this is nothing against Samson, they're just two different players. But if Samson's in, that double team doesn't come, because you see the guy drop down, and Terrace just knew exactly when to throw the ball. It was perfect, and Alex had that shot. And I think Terrace doing what he's doing right now, being a threat, is definitely going to open up Solo, Alex, and Liam a lot more when he's in. And he's actually looking now. Like, Terrace knows these guys are open. I can feed them the ball. So,
I agree with you, but I will add this. I think what yesterday showed was when Samson plays like he did last night, where he plays like a man possessed, where he's getting offensive rebounds, first double-digit rebounding game of his career. So
I didn't know that till you. I
didn't
know that,
but because he's always been, because first think about it, like he didn't play a lot his first year, he was hurt, and then last year
he got hurt.
He played. Then this last year he played minimal minutes, and they also had larger guards that would come in and snag some of these rebounds. Even Donovan only averaged like 6 or 7 rebounds a game last year. So it's not like they had like one space eater getting 20 rebounds last year. So that's the first point. The second point is that's huge for them. Dan also is this kind of master of, for all of us fans and pundits who think about, well, one guy's playing better, so he should start. And I was one of them. And I'm owning that. One of the things that Dan said in the press conference. Yeah. And you're not wrong. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think you're wrong. I think there's nothing wrong with having an opinion. But what I would say about the way Dan phrased it in the press conference was he didn't even address that. All he said was, he's like, my easiest job is to figure out who to play. He's like, because when a guy's playing shitty, he's like, I get him out of there pretty quickly. He's like, and so when Samson was playing, he was like, he's just so much better against this Marquette team because of the way they switch 1 through 5 and the interchanging parts. You have a guy like Ben Gold who can shoot the 3. So Terrace is not great at guarding these stretch 5s. And so against a Providence who didn't have a threat to shoot, easier to stay down low and kind of just anchor the paint. And that's not Samson's strength. So the fact that they're kind of playing whoever is playing best, as I said before, I have no problem with keeping Samson in the starting lineup. He's earned his right to do that. And Dan certainly has earned the right to kind of tell us to, go kick rocks with our theories, because he kind of knows what he's doing. And it was a stroke of genius in my opinion, because if I did say last time I was on a show, it hasn't been as cut and dry as people want to make it out to be, because he's had games. Samson has had games like at Marquette where he had 14 points and 5 rebounds and played really well. Right. Well, he duplicated it and was even better in the game last night. So I was the most happy for him of anybody, because he's battled through a lot of this, whether it's people like myself or others that say he shouldn't start or just, get him, he's terrible, blah, blah, blah. I haven't been that hard on him, but, kids get down on themselves, and he just really was in a funk, and he played his way out of it. It was great.
By the way Terrace is like finding his confidence the last few games, you can't find 2 centers playing the minutes they do who are more athletic at that position. Like, even Terrace is very sneaky athletic. It's a different way. And again, it goes back to your point about the way Dan uses them. But I mean, Terrace is very athletic. They can both get up and down the court. What Samson did with the ball yesterday in his hands going down the court, I mean, they're both I just think they're more athletic than I gave them credit for as a duo. And I'll leave with this point. It's more of a question. What do you think My big concern going into the Big East tournament and the NCAA, and my hope is we at least get to a second game, both, is with Hassan being injured. Now we're going to be going Big East tournament back-to-back days, NCAA tournament one day in between. Which guy do you think it's going to be, depending on the matchup, whether it's Aiden Mahaney or Noel, or are they just going to not use either and try to use Solo? Because I think that's going to be something to watch, because Hassan's not going to be able to do that, I don't think, going back-to-back, especially because he hasn't had to do it yet. He's going to be a little – his minutes
looked great last night.
What's that?
He looked great last night, and from everything
he was. I'm just concerned about back-to-back because he's still injured. The guy's gutsy as hell, but going back-to-back games he has not had to do yet going into the tournament.
I honestly, man, I don't know if they're as worried about that because Haas has felt healthy, and if you notice, he's like, there's not as much, there's not a hitch in his giddy up right now. He played. Let's see what he played. I had the box score up. I think he played 31 minutes. I think that's a good. It's a lot, but that's not. If you're the starting point guard,
with his injury, but obviously maybe it's gotten better. Well, I guess
think he's good. And the fact that Aiden played over Ahmad yesterday either tells me that what Dan is doing is basically throwing the carrot out there for 8-9 and saying whoever plays good in practice, you're going to get a shot. And if you play like shit, you get out. You know what I mean? I thought Aiden had one really nice moment in the game where he crossed the guy up and hit a good jump shot, but he's still hesitant when he gets an open shot. He doesn't shoot.
In the first half, he was in the corner. He had that shot wide open and he kicked it.
Yeah,
and I'm yelling. I yelled at the TV, dude, shoot the ball, because the only way he's going to get confidence is to shoot it.
I'm in the second to last row of the media, the fifth row up.
Oh, you must have lost your mind.
8, and I scared the guy in front of me. I don't know where he was from, because Aiden, I went, shoot! Like that. I did. I just like, what are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because he's a good shooter. Like, that's
I know
the thing,
he is.
Man. Like,
and God, if he could ever, my hope is that all of a sudden he finds it. Because God, if you could have him come in for 6 to 8 minutes and all of a sudden be confident, then all of a sudden we go to another level. But I was happy when he took the first shot. I'm like, maybe and he looked aggressive taking the ball, but then he's wide open and he passed it. I was just like, oh no. But at any rate, well, thanks, Mark, and glad they won for you.
Appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your night. That's Peter. Always nice to talk to you, Peter. Appreciate his perspective. So I'm not going to go on a tangent on Aiden. He's the 9th guy on our bench. If he plays well, great. If he gives us something, it's like, it's like found money at this point. I think to his point, Peter, and I'll answer. I didn't answer this question very well yet, so I'll finish it up here. If they go to the Big East tournament as the 3 seed, which it looks like they will, they have to beat Seton Hall to do that. Then they have a bye, and if they win that game, the first game, the quarterfinal, they should. So you're going to face a Creighton team, which is a great matchup for Haas. And they don't need to play him 40 minutes in that game. They can go big. They can have Liam run the point like he did against Creighton at home or on the road where he scored 38 points. They can go a little bigger there, really, really kind of run Creighton around. Like I said, that's just a good matchup. And then that way he's rested for a potential game against a potential rematch against Marquette or St. John's, right? That's the hierarchy. Like, unless Xavier makes a run or there's like a crazy upset. I think Ahmad will still get his opportunity if he plays well in practice. But if he doesn't, he doesn't. There's always next year. And the way I think about these guys is guys like Alex Karaban, who have been here forever. Those are the guys you should feel emotional attachment to. Guys like Samson Johnson, guys like Hassan Diarra, who have given, a ton of stuff to the program. It's not that I don't care about Ahmad. It's not that I don't care about Aiden. It's not that I don't care about Terrace. But I will always side with, if Dan wants to, play his guys first and give them the most shot before he goes with their transfers or freshmen, unless the freshmen are undeniable, like a Steph Castle or a Liam McNeely. And by the way, Liam played not great last night. And when things weren't going well, who played? Jaylin Stewart. And he sparked them. So, and Dan said in his press conference, if Liam, who wasn't playing well, if Jaylin Stewart, who didn't have cramps, I don't know if you were there, you saw him. He was outside of the huddle. I think it was at the under 8 timeout. There was 7:49 to go in the game. I think Shaka actually took a timeout. This wasn't the under 8 timeout, media timeout, because we had back-to-back breaks. And every time there was a break, you're seeing JStew kind of doing one of these, like where he's on his heels trying to get his, work the cramp out. They're working on him on the bench because Dan was like, I was ready to roll with JStew because he was playing so well. And if I can find it, I don't know if you guys saw me ask the question of Dan about this game kind of turning into a rugby scrum and he laughed but to me it was, it's, I found it and I'm going to try to see if I can get this up so you guys can see the genius question I asked of Mr. Dan Hurley. Let's see if it'll load. Let's see here. Video file. Yeah, there it is. Check this out. This is the question I asked about Dan. Where'd it go? Good Lord. Let's see if we can get that back. There it is. All right. Present video file. Let's check it out.
And maybe a matchup that suited him better than it suited Taras in this one, although I thought Taras had an impact too.
Coach, during that 10-0 run, the game kind of resembled almost a football or a rugby scrum. There were a lot of bodies on the floor. It felt like Jaylin Stewart in that moment kind of utilized what the referees were allowing, essentially, right? So before we get to his answer, and if you didn't watch the press conference, Dan agrees with me because it has nothing to do with, God, my basketball knowledge is so much better than others. It's just when you're watching this game, I can put my fandom aside and say, all right, Mark, don't blame the officials, because the officials do affect how a team plays. But one of the things that you can do, and this is something I always tell my kids, I really only tell my oldest because he's the only one that can understand it right now, is you can't change how someone feels or how, if there's adversity. You can only change your reaction to things and how you respond. So I thought the response of UConn, in particular Jaylin Stewart during that 10-0 run, was just like, oh, okay. You mean we can be this physical? We're going to play prison rules? All right, well, I'm going to play prison rules too. And he muscled and really took it to Cam Jones and took it to I always forget this dude's name. I'm not gonna forget it. Took it to Cam Jones. Took it to Chase Ross. Anybody that switched out on him. He was guarding 3 different people at one point. Even David Joplin, who had an amazing game, had 23 points. So what was so important was how physical in the response to physicality that Jaylin Stewart, and then that permeated throughout the entire team. Solo played more aggressive, even though he didn't have a shooting night. He was all over the place on defense, deflections. Alex played great defense. We heard Peter say that. So I thought that was more impactful than the tip dunk that everyone's losing their shit over. Listen to Dan right here. The physicality, and that seemed to spark it even more so than the dunk. Can you talk about his impact on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean Jaylin, really guarded well. While he was in there, I thought we struggled in some other spots defensively out there. Yeah, I mean I don't know that Big East regular season play that's with our lack of physical strength and having some young bodies out there, that's made it more challenging for us, the way these games get officiated. Obviously, we had no free throws in the first half with how much pressure and how much aggression Marquette brings to the table. Obviously that was something I mentioned to Roger and the boys.
I'm going to pause it right there for a second. The minute I got off the plane in Hartford, what I would say is what's funny to me. So I see this guy and he's got pink shoes on, and they look like a pair of shoes that I own because they're tennis shoes. So I think our buddy Roger Ayers is a tennis player. So quick story. I get my lift, go to the rideshare area, and I'm waiting for the guy to pick me up. And who rolls up behind me? Roger Ayers. And so I don't know if he took the same flight as me from Charlotte. I have no idea where he was coming from, but either way, we landed at the same time. And so he's waiting for his ride. I'm waiting for my ride. And I'm like, should I say something to him? Because, I'm trying to be as professional as possible in this role. But I also love basketball, and I recognize him. And I know his name. For whatever reason, I called him Robert in a tweet a while back because I don't know why. I think it's because of football. Robert Ayers was a former defensive end. I think he played for the Cowboys and the Broncos. Either way. So I always get those names confused, Roger and Robert. And so our lifts or Ubers come at the exact same time. Mine comes first. My guy comes out, takes my bags, puts them in the trunk. I shut the trunk. I look over my shoulder and I go, "Hey, have a great game today, sir." And he looked at me and went, "Oh, thanks." So the funny thing that I kept doing yesterday was every time he would make a call that I thought was not great, I would tweet out, "Hey, man, I thought we had an agreement that you were going to have a good game tonight." So my biggest issue is sometimes, as Dan said, like it's so difficult to officiate these games that because I might have mentioned a few things to Roger and the boys, but then listen to what he says about Roger Ayers. Look, all officials are human beings. Remember, like Jeff Goodman says, they're human beings. But you know what human beings love? They love being told how great they are, even if you just spent 2 hours telling them how much they suck. It's just a little psychological tactic. Some of the things that I've always learned in business is when you have to tell hard truths, there's nothing wrong with telling someone that they're not good at their job or they need to do better if you're in a managerial capacity. But you kind of have to give them a little something so they don't think you're being overly negative all the time. So I know that Dan does this in his very subtle, sly way. But listen to what he had to say.
But those guys are great. I mean, I think Roger's one of the best to ever wear the whistle, and Greg's one of the best young refs in the country, and Tony's obviously real good too. So but we that was a physical battle, and that's not necessarily our game. That's why I think NCAA tournament play suits us really well because we get a little more freedom of movement because they just don't let people grab you in that tournament.
So I'm going to take that off. I thought Dan handled that really well. I just, for me, I love if I can get 2 questions in, I like to get a very specific basketball question, but also try to give them something like that where he can either talk about officials or talk about his team in a way that is quintessential Dan Hurley. And to me, that was a quintessential Dan Hurley answer. Honest about JStew's potential, honest about the how silly he is and how aggressive he becomes with the officials. You can see him with his wry smile that he might have mentioned it. Yeah, that was a fun moment for me. This is a great question. What did you say to Karaban that made him laugh in your next question to the players? I'm going to get that up for you, David. I'm going to leave this up. So Dan Meehan, who's usually on the show, didn't get to the game last night, and so he sent me this really great font of Alex Karaban with the title. Let's see if I can find that too. There it is. Yep. So, give me a second, guys. I'm gonna get this all up for you. So, I pulled this up on my phone, on my laptop, my big 15-inch MacBook Pro, and so he could see it really clear. And initially, I put it up on my computer, and some of the guys that were like interns, like with the media department, were like, "Wow, that's so cool! You should show that to Dan. He'd love it." And I was like, "Huh." So that got me thinking, like, I don't know if it's appropriate to show the head coach that, but I was like, then I was going to pack it up because I typically don't like the questions that are asked of the players. Nothing against the media. They're doing their jobs. But to me, it's just not a fun, whether they win or lose. It was 11:30 at night. I was tired. I thought the players probably wanted to get the hell out of there and go celebrate or just go to bed, whatever they do. And I just didn't want to be a part of that. And so, but then in my head, I was like, I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm just going to show them this. And I got to find, it's got the picture has to be a PDF. So I have to get that squared away. So give me 1 second here as I do this. I'm trying to talk through it. Downloads. Let's see, my friends. Yeah, there we go. Almost ready. This is worth it because so the story is I show him this. He laughs. They have a great run at it. And then the best part is after the press conference is over, I was going to walk out and go out kind of like the normal way. And instead, I walked through the arena because I'm not going to be in stores any other time this year. And so I was just like, I just want to go through one more time, take a couple pictures. And I happened to actually see Alex walking on the other side, but he's starting to walk towards me. And I just called him over and said, Alex. And he came over and I said, so I got to show you this. And so I showed him the picture of what we're going to put up on for our thing. So this is the initial. This is what David is referring to. I will show you this.
I don't really have a question for you. I want to see if this is good for tomorrow's show. Should we use that to describe the last second shot?
That's a great,
All right.
agree. We could do
Well,
that.
good game for everybody. Samson, great job.
My favorite is I'm gonna replay that. Just watch Haas because Haas was looking at me like, "Dude, you're crazy," and because look at Samson's wry little smile, and then he looks at Haas.
I want to see if this is good for tomorrow's show. Should we use that to describe the?
Let's look at Samson smiling. Look, Haas is stoned. This is why Haas is a good point guard. He's like, dude, what's wrong with you?
The last second shot.
That's a
Yeah.
great,
He's smirking here.
Well, good game for everybody. Great job.
All right, this is what I showed them. That's what I showed Alex and the group, and they got a good kick out of it. So there's that, and then that turned into this. Let's see. That. So that's what I showed Alex before I walked out, and then I shook his hand, and I said, "Hell of a year. Way to be clutch." I said, go get some rest. And that is going to be on our, whatchamacallit, our thumbnail for this show in particular. And you know what, guys? Like I said about cheering in the the press box. If I was a journalist working for the Hartford Courant, I totally understand. I totally understand being like, listen, I love David Borges. He's been doing this for 20 years. And he is as good as they get. Same with like the guy like Ian O'Connor. Phenomenal reporter, more of an opinionist, but he's done a beat before. But to me, I love sports. I make my living now watching and covering basketball. And so if I get to go to a game, I want to have fun because it's a sport. We're not covering the White House, guys. Like, this isn't life and death. And so to me, I want to shake things up a little bit. And to me, that's what doing this podcast is about. That's what doing these live shows is about. And that's why I had so much fun at the game. I know they won, and that obviously makes me happy to begin with. But sometimes you got to have a little fun with these guys, and that was that. And honestly, my only regret, and I give Penfield from Twitter a lot of credit because he brought it up. He's like, for all the people giving Samson and Alex all the credit, he's like, how about Haas? And I couldn't agree more. Like, Hassan Diarra played. He had some early turnovers, but man, dude, like that dude's been playing on one leg, and he's finally kind of healthy, and he played phenomenal. Played 31 minutes. He made Stevie Mitchell arguably the best defender in all of the Big East, kind of non-existent. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like whatever, and ran the offense great. It was just a classic Big East basketball game. Oh, look at that. That's a great way to put it, Chip. Just a classic Big East basketball. And also, to David's point here, the drives to the basket. Alex's drive to the basket. Everyone talks about the three, but that's 67-62, where it was 65-62, and Alex went straight to the hole, laid it in. Probably thought he should have got fouled on it too. But that was so huge, put them up 5. And I know they, gave up 4 straight points, and that brought it to a 4-point game. But Alex's, and Shaka said that in the post game, that people wanted to talk about Alex's 3, but he's like, he had that drive before that kind of put us on our heels. So Alex played tough, played great. Samson had a game of his life. Haas was steady Eddie. On a day where, think about this, guys. Liam and Solo shoot 7 of 28 from the floor and shoot 4 of 14 from 3. And they still beat a tough Marquette team that was punching them, and they punched back. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what seed UConn can get in March Madness, and if this three-peat is back on. 3 straight wins. I like that number 3. 3-3, 33. Be right back. No ads. All right, last part of the program here. One thing I will say, this was a really great moment from the game last night. Let's see when this was. Let's see at that. Nope. So I had I'm sitting, obviously you guys saw, I think some people saw where I was and all this other stuff. I'm going to show one more video, and then we're going to talk about this seating. Let's see. Let's get that video. Let's go to photos. And, man, I'm going to talk about this moment here. This is when they went on. I think they got up 6.
Now they're turning it up, baby. Now they're turning it up.
This beautiful SOB, man. He's sitting right next to me the whole time. And at one point, I looked at him and his wife, and I can't say the exact words that I said, but I said something to the effect of, I think I'm going to lose my effing mind. And they both laughed and said, us too. And that was when they were having, I think it was like a string of fouls that were happening for UConn in a game where they weren't really calling anything. And then this is the game. This is the part of the game where they kind of strung together. I think not the 10-0 run, but this is like the first part of that, like maybe 5-0 run. And they got this you got the UConn chant. And then this guy looked at me and said what he said. I thought it was pretty funny. Let's listen to it.
Now they're turning it up, baby.
Now they're turning it up, baby. That was great. I just I did not get, by the way, Gary, I did not get a chance to talk to Rudy Gay. There was no mention of him, being there, but that was really cool. That got the crowd fired up. I didn't have my phone up in time to film that, but I actually think Joey Belbon's sent me some videos that I'll be putting up later tonight. So really cool stuff. That's scary, by the way. Thanks for the call. I say call, even though we're not on the radio, but that's okay. Let's go back to this. All right. What seed are they going to have? We're going to talk for like 5 more minutes. Right now, I think they're still an 8. And it's not because I think that they are. It's just what the metrics are saying. And I'm not a bracketologist. I lean on, guys, if you didn't listen to the show with Rocco Miller, go to thebracketeer.org. This dude gets 67 out of 68 correct every year. Every year. Don't go to Joe Lenardi. Do not go to Jerry Palm. I don't say this when he's on the shows. I don't want him to think I'm bad-mouthing the people in his profession. But this dude is not the ESPN guy. He's not the CBS guy. He's not Mike DeCourcy is not a bracketologist, guys. Mike DeCourcy is a national, fantastic, one of the best writers in all of sports journalism, but he's not a bracketologist. This guy, Rocco Miller, started doing this as like a side project for himself. And now he's doing this where he actually makes good money doing it. And he's really good at it. Like, do yourself a favor. I don't know if some people look at Bracket Matrix, other places like that, but this guy, Rocco, is as close to a sure thing as you can get. Even he said it. He goes, sometimes I get seeding wrong. He's like, I had Michigan State last year when Alabama beat North Carolina. They had Michigan State as a 10. That's what Rocco had in his bracket. He's like, sometimes, you get a blue blood, bump, right? And so, that seeding was an 8. And so maybe we get that from UConn. Maybe we get a little bump on the seeding because of it's UConn and we got cachet and it keeps them around longer. I think if we win and get to the Big East final, I think a 7 seed is definitely in play. And then I think if we win the Big East tournament, you could see, I could see a plausible option for them to be bumped to a 6, because here's a couple things. If they go in hot and they win against Seton Hall, all contingent on sweeping Seton Hall and winning on senior day. I know that's, there's a really good chance that happens, but we did lose to them last time. If that happens, and then you get into the Big East tournament and you get the Creighton matchup, you beat them, you get the St. John's rematch or Marquette rematch, and you win, and you go into the NCAA tournament on a 6-game win streak, and you're hot, they're probably going to get a 6 seed. I don't think they put them at a 5 because I think it's like a punishment, but I think it's a 6 or a 7 after that, guaranteed. And who knows, man? Crazier things have happened. If like I said, most of these bracketologists don't really get the teams wrong. They typically get seeding wrong because you're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with people who are, I guess when they do a sheet, and I'm gonna have Rocco explain this maybe one more time, at least to me, so I can relay it to you guys. But I guess if you're looking at a sheet, I have a sheet ready of like 2 teams' resume back to back. They still use something called BPI. And like, for example, like Kansas is number 12 in the BPI, which is just stupid. Kansas is not good this year. But they're losing and their metrics keep dropping, but they still have that kind of blue blood status. And I think if that continues to happen for UConn, I think he said something like UConn's like 19 in their BPI. So that helps them. But like the rest of their matrix resume, like the rest of their sheet isn't great. And so if they do end up, going on this run to win the Big East tournament after Seton Hall game, then you got to think that actually they'd be on a 7-game win streak too, by the way, if they won that. Anyway, in 2014 they were a 7 seed, Steve. In 2011 they were a 3. So no 6 seed has ever won the NCAA tournament, just to kind of throw that out there. So maybe a 7 is lucky number 7. If they get a 7 seed, it's similar to an 8-9 game where those 7-10 games are pretty up in the air, 50-50. As if you recall, in 2014, that 10 seed, 7 seed was us against St. Joe's, and if Amita Brima doesn't save our bacon as a 7 seed there, we're going home early. And so that to me is the biggest thing. You as a 7 seed to win it all, you have to get a little lucky. You have to come in with that mindset, and they definitely have the opportunity to do that. But it's all in their hands. If they keep winning, you have to have a good argument that they move off that 8 line or 9 line, because you can't backslot. That's the thing, and leave it in the committee's hands. The other thing I will tell you is 9 wins looks a hell of a lot better than 10 losses. Or 9 losses looks a hell of a lot better than 10 losses. Just something to think about. No team has won an NCAA championship having double-digit losses. Some have been to the finals, but just because UConn had 9 losses in 2011. So, a couple things. Beware of bid stealers. What I mean by that is, if like an NC State thing happens, like NC State was not going to make the NCAA tournament last year, then they made it to the Final Four. If they if a team wins a league or a mid-major, sorry, long day. But anyway, my point is like if you get 3 or 4 bid stealers that knock some teams out, that actually could help UConn, or they get bumped up a line or two. Yeah, so it is what it is. Yeah, man, it'd be cool. If they get a 6 and they end up winning as a 6 seed, that means they've won a title as a 1, a 2, a 3, a 7, and a 6. Be pretty cool. But I kind of want them to get a 7 seed because I would love a 7 seed and then you win your 7th championship. There's some symmetry there that I think would be fantastic. And then next year, if they win a 7th, if they won a 7th championship this year and they go 3-peat, I'd want Braylon or Jacob Furphy to come in and wear 77. I'll Luca, but that'd be pretty cool. All right, listen, guys, I got some work to do before I jump off. My wife's coming home at 9:30, and I definitely want to see her versus talking to you, beautiful people. If you saw my wife, you'd know why. I love you guys. I will say this before I go. A couple things. I'm going to try to get through this without getting emotional because I am such a softie. But everyone say a prayer for Vinny. I'm going to put his Twitter handle in the chat and then put it across my banner here. And I want to get it right so I don't screw anything up and then you guys go looking for him and you can't find him. All right. Where's he at? Kevin Lombardi is a let me get him in here first and then I'll say what I have to say before I jump off. Sorry if I've turned this into a screeching halt, but this is where you can find him. Okay. At the evil Lombardi. I'm going to put a banner across. All right. So he's a Waterbury cop, a 29 years old. He is battling some really difficult cancer right now. He needs some miracles right now, guys. He needs a lot of good juju and prayer. Whether you pray, whether you meditate, whether you believe in God or whether you don't, I don't care. Send him some good messages. Send him some thoughtful, things that, he lives and breathes UConn basketball. And he's not the only one, guys. Like a lot of people are going through some stuff. I had a 30-minute conversation with the guy who listens to the show. His name is Mark Victor. Prayers for him too. He just had some radiation done. I think he's stage 3 or stage 4. And so I want everybody that is battling this stuff to know that you're not alone. You can always reach out to me. You can always reach out to other people in this community. And yeah, see, if I talk about this stuff too long, I get emotional. So it is what it is. Prayers up to him and others. And I'm going to leave on that. Go Huskies. Stay positive. And anything for a Husky win.
Go Huskies.